In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Well, it's nice to know that the grinder isn't jammed today.
Grinder jam.
Yeah.
I love grinder jam.
I don't know what we would do on the intro if the grinder was jammed.
Speaking of jammed grinders, it always seems like a really good idea. Those fresh nut butter grinders that they have in the store. But those, have you ever looked up inside of those? Like, those are the most disgusting creations in a store. It's like, what a great idea. People can grind their own nut butter, and not just peanuts either. They can pour in almonds or cashews or anything they want from our selection. And yet it's just a big, nasty, clogged up kind of shit heap when you look up in there. It's crusty and they never clean it. It's not good. It's not good.
Isn't that something that the health department would probably have to check at a grocery store?
Health department. Do we still have that? I thought they were doged. Speaking of which, Elon and I'm no longer friends with him. He doesn't like my budget. He's out. No Christmas card. It's over. He's done.
That's what the honors
Mr.
count.
Musk is he's trying to find it, and I've sent my operatives in to delete it finally, but they just can't seem to get it right. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's the dirge. He's playing the funeral dirge for Elon Musk, who's no longer attached to the federal government in the way.
So that didn't take very long for that falling out to happen, did it?
Are you surprised? I mean, should we be surprised? This is the greatest hope that I have for all of this being real that I've thought I would experience in the longest time. It's just like, that's true to form, baby.
I almost wonder if the burning of Teslas had anything to do with gravitas. Can be difficult sometimes. Coming into the Oval Office and saying, Donald, I need to step away from the task at hand.
Well, weren't sales down like 70% or something crazy like that I hear? Or was it that much? That seems like a lot. Anyway, they were down pretty significantly. And I think as soon as the zeros started to evaporate off the end of their trail, the Googleplex that are in his bank account somewhere, he was just like, yeah, better trade in Doge for Tesla again and get all my loyal customers back. What's the next trick? Self-driving, of course, is the big thing. You know, he wants to just put us in the car like we're sitting in the living room now and just let someone else do all the work, right? The self-driving thing. But what's next? I mean, let's go into, Metropolis 2.1 and say, okay, self-driving, self-flying even automobiles have arrived. I mean, it's just transportation has become completely autonomous, but you still have to be there as a physical entity. Unfortunately, you still have to move your body around inside these conveyances. So what's the next thing that they market to us from there? I mean, obviously, it's a completely immersive experience in the vehicle already, regardless of whether you're operating the fucking thing or not, which with those giant screens they have now, you most certainly are not, even though you're supposed to be. So self-driving, autonomy, it's arrived. Now what? What do they push on us next? I'm sure they're working on it, whatever it is. There are 4 or 5 different incarnations.
Yeah.
And so coming up with something for Tesla.
Well, no, and I think we had talked about this on our way. We took a little road trip this weekend. We were talking, my wife and I were talking about this, and my vehicle is the newer of the two vehicles in our family, and she's been talking about getting a new car. And I said, we're probably about 5 years away from every car. Like the next vehicle that I drive is probably going to have an auto driving feature. Can't you see that in the next 5 years? Most of the vehicles rolling out with an auto driving.
5 might be a little quick, but I would say 10. My bet would be on 10. It takes time to roll these things out, and you got to get them, because they're also going to have to do some adjustments to state laws because, of course, the states are behind the autonomous driving features, and they're already, we already have taxi cabs in the big city that are completely robotic.
Mm-hmm.
But the states, for the people that are concerned, are saying we're doing our best to catch up. When we finally figure out what the state clam should be, because that's going to take superior precedent here, then we'll worry about the autonomous vehicles all of you are so worried about, crashing into each other and pedestrians and going nuts and all that. So I actually picture like a combination of Maximum Overdrive and Christine, like coming together, and like these autonomous vehicles get together and say, yeah, we're going to fuck a bunch of you up. So I can't wait for that day.
The Transformers go on strike.
Yeah. I love the name of the bad guys in Transformers. Always love that. Decepticons. That's great. I mean, because it even pulls con in there with it too. Like, who thought of that? Whoever thought of that should have gotten a raise. Decepticon. Speaking
of cons, didn't you visit a con not too long ago?
Oh yeah, we never talked about my experience at Crypticon, Seattle, which is kind of like it's horror meets I don't know, meets kitsch, meets a little sci-fi. It's got pinches of this and dashes of that, but it's essentially in that realm, fantasy, things like that. So it was fun. It was a little convention over in Seattle, and we went 2 days in a row, which I thought was pretty amazing, but it was a good time. I met Pinhead there. Like the actual guy he doesn't play him anymore, but the guy that used to play Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies, Doug Bradley.
Really?
He was giving away pictures. I mean, how could you not say, look at me, I'm with the guy who plays, this is me with Pinhead. Now, granted, he's out of makeup, but so what? I mean, it's still Pinhead.
It's still Pinhead.
Yeah. And then the heroine from those movies, Ashley Lawrence, was also in attendance. And so we had to pay her to get an autograph. And then one of Maddie's longtime musical hero / teenage crushes / on and on we go. Kevin something is his real name. He goes by Ogre. He's from the band Skinny Puppy. So, who I remember from high school because all the punk ass kids listened to Skinny Puppy, including my best friend from grade school, who once we got to middle school disowned me because I just wasn't cool now that all the grades were merged together. And then in high school, he became really just out of control punk, and he used to wander around the hallways shaking his head violently with this rooster cut with his Walkman over his ears going, kill the dog, kill the dog, kill the dog, kill the dog. And I'm pretty sure that has some ties to Skinny Puppy, but sadly I forgot to ask Ogre when we talked with him there about that. I was never a big fan. It's not that I don't like them now that I've heard them and had heard them before. It's it's okay, but it wasn't my thing. I was into what they call butt rock, Winger and stuff like that. So, but anyway, it was fun.
Would you say that the cons are very similar to the Renaissance fairs?
No, because I've been to one of those too. It was a long time ago so my girlfriend, when I was just out of high school, was also one of my best friend's cousins. That's how we met. And so I was miserable. I think my friend actually held his own because it was his girlfriend and he didn't want to disappoint her. And then, my girlfriend at the time, she endured it probably better than I did, because I think I could be seen rolling my eyes, because they sort of tell you when you get there without really telling you, okay, look, we know all of this is pretend, but you have to totally act like it's real, and don't ever like leave character. Don't ever make references to, like, you can't say, "Hey there, Heather, may I have a drink of that high C orange that you high C orange didn't," and that's what they'll do. They'll be like, time out. High C orange didn't exist back in medieval times. You can't say that. And then they remind you, like, you can't. And it was just ridiculous. The largest part of it that I can remember was it was less fair than it was just listening to these three guys that were dressed up like Vikings regale us with false tales of their like sailing around the Nordic seas and shit. And it's like, look, I'm all for imagination. Really, I don't mean to poop on their parade. I love imagination. I'm interested in folklore. You know, all these themes are working for me. It's just the way that they're coming together is kind of making me a little seasick. You know, this is kind of really putting me off sitting here, because it was a pretty full like lunch table that they'd rented at the, you know, Grange Hall down there to do this in. And we're all sitting there, and it was like we didn't get to go around the table and all share a story. You know, it was just them, and they were loud and bumptious, and it was ridiculous. And of course, I had nothing that would fit the times. I was 19, 18 at the time. I had nothing Renaissance fair in my closet. So they had to loan me the shittiest. It was like the throwaway robe they used for the scene where Darth Vader takes down Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. It's like, do we have a robe that we can get rid of that we can slice through it for this shoot? Yeah, get it out here. That's the one they gave me. It was moth-eaten and dog-eared, and it was as tatterdemalion as you can imagine.
It wasn't camera ready.
It looked ridiculous, and yet I had to keep the goddamn thing on the whole time, because if I didn't, I would reveal, you know, the White Snake T-shirt that I had underneath or something, and White Snake didn't exist. But I mean, and I was like, "Are you sure?" Like, well, there were white snakes, mind you, but there wasn't White Snake the band. So like, yeah, you fuckers. So anyway, it was. Oh,
geez, there's one not too far from us, and it's called the Midsummer Renaissance Fair. And of course, it's spelled with an E. I figured at one point you had probably visited one. This one looks fairly legit, though. This one looks like it takes place maybe at a fairground somewhere, because there are horses involved. There's falconry. Maybe me and the Maltese Falcons could attend.
Jack is not a dress-up person. Now, he wears flamboyant clothing and crazy, like, beaded shoes and wild necklaces, and, you know, like, all that kind of stuff is in every day. It weirds me out. There's something about masquerading that just it makes me uncomfortable. I don't understand why you want to relive these times, because talk about over-romanticizing medieval times. Medieval times, just based on what we know, were not the best of times. You know, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Yeah, this was the worst of times. Okay, Charles, it was not good, like, at all. There was rampant disease. You know, pillaging was a thing that was daily. You know, and
it's kind of like a pirate festival. Like people like the pirates festivals in our region as well.
I was at one in the Deep South. Yeah, I remember the one they had in Florida that I was. And the thing is that it wasn't even a plan to attend it. This was my bad luck that day. Talk about like the infelicity of that moment for me. Just happened to be in this town in Florida, and lo and behold, we stumble in on the day that, welcome all of you to their fine town here. And it's like, what the fuck is this? This pirate shit going on. It's like, yeah, it's the big pirate fest today. Oh, lucky Jack, he's here. What I wanted to do, because like I don't have a top shelf pirate by any means, but you know, you just heard it. It's decent. It'll get me by at any pirate festival. It's acceptable. A lot of the pirate talk was terrible. I just wanted to stop and go, you need some lessons on how to talk like a pirate. You're in a pirate festival dressed up like a corsair, dressed up like a swashbuckling picaroon, you know, like a buccaneer, and you're talking like an idiot. You're talking like somebody that I just like, you know, was up the road in Tallahassee that I had to ask directions to. It's just like, so, yeah, you got to get it right there, with how all those things and the kitties. And, just to give it a little bit of, you ever watch Jaws? Just do Quint,
Yeah.
Just fucking do Robert Shaw the best you can, and you're halfway home, so that's fine.
Here's to swimming with bow-legged women.
Here lies the body of Mary Lee, died at the age of 103. For 15 years, she kept her virginity. Not a bad record for this vicinity.
He has the best one-liners in that movie. That is a great character.
It was. And I think my favorite thing he said was just in one of those tight, intimate shots that he was doing with Richard Dreyfuss and Roy Scheider, when he's talking about sharks, and he just says, they've got those black eyes like a doll's eyes, they're black. And it's like, to me, that's the quintessential Quint, is when he's talking about the shark as though he is the shark. It's just, yeah, it's good stuff. I'm sorry he was eaten, but I think that was obviously his destiny, so it came time. And to be blown up into little bits too, because he'd only just started to be digested when the shark took him, and then the shark blew up like in the next sequence.
I never thought about that.
Suddenly there's arms and legs. It's like, Quint, you got blown. I mean, he may have been alive in there for all we know, still just kind of half breathing. So he not only was ingested by a shark, but blown to smithereens by an air canister. Man, that's a hell of a way to go out,
That is great. I never thought about that.
In fact, maybe, just maybe, in some of the deleted scenes or like the director's cut version we're never going to get from Jaws,
the commentary,
that's who Roy Scheider is saying to "Smile, you son of a bitch." It's Quint in there, like grinning like a maniac, like, God, just shoot me already. Come on, get it over with, So.
Oh, that's great, man. I used to love that movie. That movie was one of those movies I would watch on just constant repeat at my grandma's house. And I think I probably wore out the VHS tape. I watched it that many times. It was such a good movie.
I saw it in the theater when it came out in 1975. And at 2, I think I was a little too young to see it, even for my family. Because remember, my favorite movie at age 4 was High Anxiety, and my favorite movie at age 6 was The Jerk, because it replaced it a few years later. And yes, I went to see The Jerk in the theater in 1979, 1980 when it came out. But I remember I think they brought it back to theaters in the summer of 77 because Star Wars was a huge hit and the Spielberg-Lucas train was full barrel. So I believe they put it back in theaters for a short run in the summer of 77. And I think that's when I saw it for the first time when I was about 4 years old. And obviously it levied the same impression that it did on any kid at the time. I didn't want to take a bath for months. A bath, mind you, not the lake even. A bath. I wouldn't get in the bath. I didn't want to sit on the toilet. Stuff like that. So and it's based, of course, on a true story. Obviously, it takes a lot of liberties. The kind of shark, the size of shark for one, but then also the ocean setting. But it draws on inspiration. Peter Benchley wrote the book, and he was very sorry for writing the book, by the way, because within 5 years of the movie being made, all of the old great whites in the sea were fished out. People vilified the great white shark to no end because of that movie, and it was an unintended consequence. And he said since then that had he known that, he never would have agreed with the publishing house to bill the rights of it to the movie studio so they could make the movie, because he loved the sea and he loved sharks and all the ocean and all of its life. It's all he wrote about. He wrote The Deep too, which was a pretty good movie back in the 70s as well. But so again, just that's not the way human beings work. They see the shark vilified on screen in just a very local vicinity of these, people that are in this little story. And then the next thing you know, all great white sharks are evil and they have to be done away with. And that's what people did. They fished them out. But anyway, he based that on real events that happened. I think it was early 20th century or late 19th century, but I'm pretty sure it was the 19 teens or 20s, right around in there when this happened. It was quite a while ago. It happened in New Jersey, and it took place on tributaries of the of the ocean, of the Atlantic Ocean, but they were actually brackish rivers that ran inland for several miles, and bull sharks were getting into the brackish and even fresh waters, which they can do. Bull sharks are one of the species of sharks, apparently, that can get into brackish and fresh water and live for a while. And it's perfect hunting grounds because it's shallow water and there's lots of fish. And so the bull sharks were whooping it up. Well, so were the kids, the local people that played in those tributaries. And there were several of them that got killed in shark attacks in a summer there when those bull sharks were swimming around in the Jersey tributaries. And so that's what he based the movie on loosely. But of course, he moved it further north to the fictitious Amity Island. And, you know, it's this Nantucket thing that he kind of tried to create. And so anyway, but yeah, great stuff. And then Jaws 3. I mean, we've talked, that's first podcast out, Jaws 3. So here we are finally dealing with 1.
Well, and you know, no podcast after Memorial Day would be complete if we didn't talk about Jaws and the effects that it had on summer swimming. Because you're right. I mean, that was one of those where I think as a young kid, going even in the pool was something that you second guessed.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. Now that's the tagline for Jaws 2. Which was a decent enough movie, but obviously it's sandwiched in between a classic original and an absolutely masterpiece turkey that was made on the other side of it in 3. So, yeah, 2's there, but it's kind of like, well, because it seemed like they wanted to do some different stunts that they hadn't done in the first one, the water skiing thing. And I always remember the poster. And the reason I remember the poster, it was used for the theme for a birthday cake that I had when I was like 6 years old. Mom used to get me the cakes with the airbrushed artwork on them back then, probably long before they became a thing, you know. And so there are pictures of me with my Jaws cake at the kitchen table when I'm just a young little guy, you know, like I said, probably 6, 7 years old, early grade school. And they're funny. I liked the way they did the shark because the ladies that airbrushed the cake and did the frosting did the shark purple because the water was blue. Because I remember when they put out my cake and they opened the box, it's like, here it is, Jack. What do you think? And I was just like, fucking shark's purple. And my mom was savvy enough, of course, knowing that I was going to be meticulous about the details of my birthday cake, actually took the time to ask them, why did you make the shark purple? So she had an answer for me when the box lid came open. And she said, oh, I know, dear, but they said the water is blue. And if they were to do the shark blue too, then the shark wouldn't contrast well with the water, even though it's coming out of the water on a white background because the frosting's white aside from that. And I looked at it a couple times and did a double take. And then I went, you know what? I like that. Plus, this is my Jaws cake. I want a purple shark. I got a purple shark. So she talked me down. See, it was like, kid likes the cake. I knew it. She knew exactly how to diffuse the purple shark problem. That's funny. I'm sorry I don't have those pictures. My brother has like all of the photo albums of all of that stuff. And because I can see the pictures in my mind, because there's one where I take like a little pinch of frosting and like stick it on my eyelashes and I'm doing this squinty thing. It's supposed to be like the sharks come up and bit me. And I mean, I can see them crystal clear in my mind, but I'd love to be able to share them. So maybe one of these days I'll get access to them so I can show the world Jack Hansen's Jaws birthday cake from when he was 6 or 7. But anyway, good stuff, good times. It was great to be alive then, so I can actually say I was there. You're a little bit younger, so you weren't.
You're talking about some damn shark's mother?
And I saw that in the theaters, I said, in 3D when it came out, too.
Yeah, 3D. No, and then The Revenge, Jaws 4, the one where
we've talked about that, too.
It takes place in the Bahamas.
And they barely show the shark. And Michael Caine is, of course, playing... I don't even remember what he plays in it. He doesn't remember. He doesn't care because remember the line, you know...
He plays Hoagie.
Why would you do that movie? Just like, well, the movie itself was not very good, I'll grant you that, but the house it bought me was extraordinary. I mean, that's his line for why he did that movie. And it's, and I don't think he was shilling out. I think it's basically like, look, I'm Michael Caine. I'm at the top of my game right now. He was doing a lot of movies at that time. And this was another one. It's like, I got to work. And right now I'm hot and I'm going to roll. I respect that. Plus, it's a great franchise. Let's face it. I mean, I would rather do RoboCop 7 as an actor than I would some one-off piece of trash that, was just, let's put it this way. I would rather do RoboCop 7 or 6 than Howard the Duck. Let's put it that way.
Do you feel like the franchise was kind of like an 80s, 90s movie thing? It seemed like there was a lot of film franchises, and maybe that Star Wars effect had something to do with it, but it seems like Jaws was that way. And then it's like, wait a few more minutes, and then now we've got the merchandising and the video games, and there was a lot of that going on, wasn't there?
Well, I think what you saw in the 70s was the birth of the sequel. I mean, so you have to have, without the sequel, you don't have the franchise.
Right.
So I feel like Hollywood almost started to put the cart before the horse in a lot of ways later on, because they wanted to write the franchise before they even had a decent sequel. And to me, the best era for the sequel was the 1980s. In fact, Maddie was just looking at some Reddit thing or something the other day where people were chatting about sequels that are better than the original. And people were just dead on with it. And most of them are from the horror sci-fi genre. Mm-hmm. And they said the same exact ones I always do. Aliens, Terminator 2, Phantasm 2, which comes to mind. I mean, they're all, and Hellraiser 2, quite frankly, too. I know the original's a classic. All of those originals are a classic, but the second ones are just better movies. Mm-hmm. And even though they were Hollywoodized and, none of them had to do with original books if they were based on it or things like that, they were better movies because they had a bigger budget typically, because, they were just better movies because of the success of the original allowed for a lot more financial leeway in the second one to make a better movie. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, the sequel is born in the 1970s and then it improves in the 1980s. And then you get the franchising that just kind of almost happens as a result of that. What you originally have, though, which you look at, is you didn't really have sequels as much as the first movie franchise I can think of. And of course, everything was based on book adaptations in the early days of cinema, or so much was. They're the James Bond movies. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of any other films that are earlier than that where, and it was funny because it was just Ian Fleming's birthday this week, as a matter of fact. So it's interesting that should come up. But the Bond movies, I think, are the first ones that I think about where there's, it's another Bond movie. That's got to be the first movie franchise that there was. But the idea wasn't a franchise. It was similar to how they used to publish books. It was, join this character or comic books even. Who's one of those old comic book characters that you'd find that was like a cowboy? It's not my thing, but one of those guys that would be out there. Lone Ranger, something like that. The Adventures of the Lone Ranger. Okay, so you put the Lone Ranger in a comic book, and then you got to make another comic book because you got to keep selling comic books, of course. And so they come up with another story. And so same thing. And I think that's kind of maybe how the movie franchise is born, is out of the Saturday serials. Mm-hmm. What they used to call them. That's before both of our times, back in black and white days, when you'd go to the movies on the weekends and the Saturday serials would be short films, and they were always cliffhangers. Every single ending was, will the Lone Ranger fall into the tar pits, or will he somehow find his way? I mean, join us next week so you can come back and spend another quarter at the theater and find out what happens to the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, I remember hearing a documentary that Steven Spielberg did on the Indiana Jones movie franchise, and that's exactly what that character was based off of, was the serials. And,
yes.
And I would say that Indiana Jones Temple of Doom is probably better than the first film, at least in my mind.
A lot of people like Temple of Doom. I'm not as big a fan of Temple of Doom. I think the first one is the best one. And this, by the way, is not counting Crystal Skulls or anything that's come after that, because it just ended for me like so many things with. I mean, God bless Harrison Ford for coming back at like 68 or whatever he was to do that. But to me, just we're dealing with the original three. In my order is honestly 1, 3, 2. And I know that surprised a lot of people because a lot of people like Temple of Doom more. To me, Temple of Doom went for just a few too many gasp moments with the pulling of the heart out of the chest and the chewed monkey brains. And I didn't like that. I just, and all the insects and they were thrills that I felt they were a little too puerile for my taste. I liked the thrills of the first movie better because they were just more mature. I just think that they were a little bit more adult, and I think they were postured better. The second one just went for a real 10-year-old, oh God, gross feel. And well, that's nice. For me personally, I didn't care for it as much. And I think the most refined movie certainly was the third one. I mean, the inclusion of Sean Connery in the third one, it's absolutely brilliant if you ask me, Michael. If that is your real name. If we can get to the bottom of all this finally.
Best scene in cinema history, Indiana Jones, the first film, when the man steps out with the sword and starts swinging it in the air, and Harrison Ford just pulls his gun out and shoots him. That is probably one of the best scenes. Not because of the violence involved, but just because of oh, wow, he has a sword. What's Indy going to do? Well, he's going to shoot him.
All right, so have to bring up a couple things. Real quick one, was in a Zoom meeting or whatever they call it earlier today, and I was playing with all the buttons because I was bored with what the guy was talking about. It was a work thing. And I clicked this one button and it brought up people. It said people. And on the sidebar, it brings up all of the people that are in the meeting. And the very top one, it gives your name as you've signed in for the meeting. And I put like Liberace or something, of course, because, fuck it. I don't care, right? But in parenthetically out by whatever you've put in for the meeting, it says you. I'm just like, yeah, no shit. Really? Just in case I forget who I am while I'm on this call, it's, oh, look at that. It's me. I'm on this call. Like, wow, this is for people who get drunk at work a lot, so it's like, am I on this call? Yeah, I am on this call. So yeah, that's great. So we were talking about my birthday cake earlier, and I think I referenced themed birthday parties. Yeah, we were talking about Renaissance fairs and all that kind of thing, and I was talking about how it's almost like a themed party. So I think I brought this up on a recent a recent Existence Brewing sit down. So I wanted to go over it real quickly because I'll give you a little backstory. I thought of this. It was given to me. You know me. You whatever you are, identify as. You don't really think of anything. You just pluck it from the Akashic record. You just pull the pear from the tree or whatever metaphor you want to make. But this thought was given to me, and then there's a woman who I work very loosely with in association at my job. She actually is one of the people that will give stock market reports over the radio, and she works for a local investment firm that is signed on with our radio company to provide this service. It's a trade thing. Really nice gal, but I know a little bit about her, and I know that she's super religious, or at least quite religious, and she's also very mainstream. Like, if everybody else is, so we're very diametrically opposed in that way. If everybody's going to the movies and watching it, I won't see it for 20 years, that kind of thing. Jack, he's got to be, counterculture. So she's very culture immersed. I'm very counterculture. And so we're opposites in that way. But I ran this by her because she has children and they go to a lot of birthday parties because her children and her husband have a ton of friends. And I ran this by her one time and she loved this. So why I'm saying this is because this has, therefore, at least the silver star, this has the golden seal, the backing of one person who does not think or act like Jack Hansen. Okay, so this is one person that I've been able to reach with one of my little weird, offshoot quip things.
Oh, so it actually is like a silver bullet then.
Yeah, like this landed, and I was thrilled. I was like, wow, she really got what I was trying to say. Not only that, she said, I'm probably going to do this the next time one of my kids has a birthday party. So what it is, we were talking about, she was telling me, because she was late in the week. She was our Thursday, Friday gal. We don't even have this company anymore, so sadly I haven't talked to her in months. But when she was doing these, she was late. She was the late week person, so she'd do Thursday, Friday. So we'd always inevitably wind up talking about, what are you doing this weekend? And I would tell her, well, me and Maddie are going somewhere, we're staying home, or we're watching this, or whatever it was. She'd tell me half the time, it's my kids, this soccer, baseball, football camp, whatever. Birthdays are a big one too. She's like, so a birthday came up, and I said, oh God, it's a themed birthday, I'll bet, isn't it? And she said, yes. And I said, oh, what is it this time? Which Disney character is it this time? Or what movie is it this time? Or superhero. So she'd tell me. And so I gave her my download on this. I gave her what the universe gave to me about why I just pucker whenever I see or hear about these themed birthday parties. And this is why. And this is what I wrote down. It's 3 bullet points. So the heading is themed birthday parties for kids. The first bullet point is fuck them. The second bullet point is Disney and Marvel get enough homage already. They make billions of dollars on everything that they slop out to the public, whether it's good, bad, or in between, as far as the writing and the animation is concerned. They make tons of money on movies and DVDs and cartoons and TV shows and every merchandise you can imagine. The last part of it is the important part of it. The 2 first things, one is just irreverence for the sake of, I don't like it. The second thing is just trying to be funny because it's also true. But it's the third thing, and I didn't tell her those other things, but this is what I told her. I said, this is what I wrote down, and we can expound on this. Your birthday already has a theme, and it's the greatest theme of all time as far as you're concerned. And that is you and the celebration of you being here. There's no better theme than that. And so for God's sakes, parents, children of parents, stop asking for themed birthday parties that just fall in line with some cup collection or some collection of, plates and napkins. And this themed bullshit has got to stop. The theme of your birthday is you being here. Now, I don't have any problem like getting a Jaws cake like I did because I liked Jaws when I was a kid. But it wasn't every fucking thing at the party was about a cinematic invention. It wasn't about, we're going to have little Jaws games and we're going to have little, and everybody's going to go and we're going to do Shark in the Water. And then we're going to, everybody's going to talk like Roy Scheider. And then everybody's going to talk like Quint. And we're going to have a Quint off. And, as fun as that may sound, screw it. Okay, no more themed birthdays. A checkerboard of you and only you. If Jaws or if Disney is one piece of you, you like it, make it one piece of your birthday, but don't make it the whole thing. Don't make it a corporately sponsored event by default. Make it yours. It's your birthday. It's the day you arrived in this particular incarnation for the experience. It's better than any one single movie. Okay, it's better than that. Your movie is playing out as we speak. So don't take your one day of the year that you get to have your day and make it all about something that's already been rerun 10 million times.
I don't know.
That's my
though.
2 cents on it.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I really do think that an old guy sitting in a backyard in a old rocking chair drinking a bunch of beer and talking to a bunch of kids as the character of Quint would be a very interesting experience.
I know the Quintoff was a good idea, and that's the problem is I often come up with some decent ideas because I'm an imaginative person, but still, you got to put the kibosh on it. I mean, if you want, like I said, get the Jaws cake, and then Mom can do the Quintoff thing. She'll invite the old sailor over and pay him $50 and probably show him a tit, and then that'll be like payment or whatever. So whiskey and, can I have a peek get that, madam, before. Thank you very much. So that's,
Hey, Mom, what's a bow-legged woman?
He's like, just ask your Aunt Dottie. I believe she was, we'll call her friend of mine.
That makes for an interesting car ride home, doesn't it, kids?
Well, to me, it's just another sign of complete banality, Like, I want a themed birthday. First of all, when did birthday parties get themes? Because I never had a single one when I was growing up. Like I said, I had a Jaws cake, I had a dinosaur cake, I had a Godzilla cake, I had Gremlins cake. I mean, whatever I was into at the time appeared on my cake. And then that was it.
Well, it's kind of in the same breath as the like next season selling at the box stores. So now, everything is 4th of July. Everybody's having to go out and buy all their 4th of July regalia. And at the 4th of July, it's going to be, okay, here comes back to school and Halloween. And then it's, here's Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's that whole mentality of consumerism and having to go and purchase whatever it is, your tchotchkes, for the next chapter in life, right?
Yeah, we're just corporately zombified. I mean, it's just people have no imagination at all, and they're just, well, the hot movie right now is Disney's, What's It To You? And so Disney's What's It To You? It's just like, I want a Disney What's It To You themed party because you're going to have no choice anyway, kid, because that's what your mom and dad, or probably more particularly your mom, wants to throw through you. Because I have a feeling moms are the guilty party here. Dad probably doesn't give a shit. Mom is the one arranging all of this, and the moms get together, and it's, what kind of a party are you throwing for your sweet little angel? Well, well, that's nice, but that's so interesting because that movie came out 7 months ago, and when it's time for my little Danny's birthday, there'll be the new release of What's It To You For, and we're going to do a What's It To You For. That's what we're doing. We're doing the new movie, not the old one. It's a parent shit show, is what it is. It's that dog and pony route. The kids probably, they want it, but they would probably be just as happy with something else that was about them. And that's all I'm saying is just, try to, and this comes, of course, from a human being that in this incarnation has no children and probably isn't going to have them. But I still really feel like individuality is a lost art form, and it's the savior of everything that we know. I mean, I don't want to save mankind. I just want to save like a little piece of the soul that occupies it at this time. And, individual expression is an important fundamental in that operative. So
this is actually a topic that my wife and I were talking about. And
is it really?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how impactful social media has become on her decision making. And I wouldn't say that we were like trying to, I was saying we were maybe looking at our household expenses and groceries and just kind of our discretionary income. And we were looking at kind of some of these ways that maybe we can save more money throughout the month and just kind of not feel like we're constantly throwing. Because when you look at the price tag for how much money we spend every month on groceries or on discretionary items, you kind of go, wow, that'd be nice to have back. And not that, there are some items there that are essential, but one of the things that she brought up was this idea that, you've got all of these people who really are influencers, and you're constantly being bombarded with these messages of, oh yeah, you need to do this birthday party. And there's actually a term that I ran across not too long ago in this article on media overload. I almost wanted to call it media overlord. But no, media overload from the American Psychology Association. There was a term called doom scrolling, and it emerged during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is essentially the negative impact that just continually scrolling down these social media posts or scrolls have on you as you're just constantly being inundated with information, whether it's birthday parties or a new book that you should buy or the latest thing that's happening in a third world country that you've never heard of, or, whatever it might be.
Yeah, it hurts my head. I watch Maddie scroll like her social media feeds because I don't do social media. It's not. I mean, we do social media for the podcast just because it's a thing and it's like people can find you there and we want to share. But I don't do social media really aside from that. Very little. Just really pointed endeavors to try to find things or communicate with one person specifically or one business or something like that if I'm interested in something they have. But I've watched her scroll, like on TikTok and stuff, and it hurts my fucking brain. I can't. After about like just 8 or 9 things, I'm done. It's overload for me. It's way too much. And I mean, as far as influence is concerned, I mean, I hate to tell ex-wife stories, but I remember, and this has been some time ago. So, the internet was a thing. Social media was a burgeoning thing, I would say at the time. And this may be more to her character than it is to the overall influence of social media. But I think that it's got an equitable weight to both. I remember, and you're talking about somebody that at the time we were together 9 years before we got married, but I just count the 9 years. I just rope them in because it's like we were together, living together, the whole thing. So this is somebody that I've essentially been married to for, at the time, 16, 17 years, almost, 2 decades. So you feel like you know somebody. So we're tooling down the road and we're looking for this teapot. I know that sounds obscure, but remember, it is me driving. So there's this, in the state we live in, there's this old, like Route 66 style kitschy stop on the old highway, and it's this building that's shaped like a teapot, and it used to be this little cafe, and so you can find it in this little town down there. It's still there. They've kept it up. And so I want to see the teapot. Like, all right, I know where the teapot is, so we'll go. So we're driving down the highway, tooling along, 60 miles an hour, trying to get to the teapot. And all of a sudden, the person that you've known for, 17, 18 years, that you've never even thought about firing a gun with in your life, looks over at you and says, "Why don't we fire guns? Why don't we shoot guns?" And I almost crashed the car. I'm just like, okay, like when did Invasion of the Body Snatchers start? Like where's Charlton Heston? Like who took my wife? Like,
yeah,
where is
right.
she? Why don't we fire guns? What are you, fucking crazy? Because we don't. I mean, well, yeah, and then here it came. There's this girl, this woman that I met her online, and we have absolutely everything in common. I mean, everything. We like the same books in order. We've even done the order, and they match, and we have exactly the same taste in clothes, and we have the same taste and our favorite movies are the same, and our favorite foods are the same, and our favorite vegetables are the same, and our favorite, like, Barry Bostwick appearances on late night media are the same, and it's just on and on. Okay,
the only difference is
her and her husband, they go to the target range and we don't, and she wants to know why we don't. I'm just like, are you fucking for real at this moment in time?
I wish I could have been in the car at that moment. That would have been great.
Oh my God, I've never been so frightened in my life. I was just like, all right, look.
Do we want to go to the teapot or?
I will give you the skinny on why I am not going to partake in the pastime of firearms. And that is because it's a weapon that's specifically designed to maim and kill. Everything that Jason Voorhees ever slashed somebody to pieces with is an implement made for something else. It's made for cutting wheat, or it's made for, chopping down wood, or, I mean, it's not, he's never shot a gun at anybody. Guns were made specifically to maim and kill. So while I'm fine with Jason Voorhees stabbing you with something that was meant to cut paper dolls because, look at that, it's so clever, I'm not as good with bang bang because that's what it's designed for. I'm not interested in guns. I don't like guns personally. It's against my spiritual nature. I'm not firing one as a pastime, as just something to, pass the time, as something to just be. It's not a hobby for me. I don't want to do that. If you want to go shoot guns, you're more than welcome to do that. Unfortunately, even though I'd like to support you in as many things as I can as your husband, this is not one of them. I'm out. So have fun at the gun range. And of course, this is terrible news because now she has to go back to this person who's made such an impression on her, who, by the way, could be anybody. Could be fucking anybody online, especially at that time when there's no way to even really check, and say, oh, it's terrible. My husband doesn't want to play with guns. What shall I do? And, so like I said, I think part of this was her introverted nature and the fact that when it was rare for her to meet anybody, let alone meet anybody that made a positive impression upon her. So this was sadly kind of an overkill side effect of that. But there's no question that the social media ramifications have their own weight in this too, because we see this every day with influencers, and we've seen this with politicians and religious figures and people. If they have that charismatic edge, they can get a lot of people to stand behind them for a lot of things that really either don't matter or that are not the best interest of people. And
can I play the part of your ex-wife in this situation?
Oh, I wish you would.
Dear Abby, I'm writing you finally to tell you that Jack thinks that we should start playing with knives instead of guns because he says they're far more creative, and Jason Voorhees does it, so we should do it too. P.S. I still think that we should exchange our favorite book titles starting with the letter T. Yours truly. Is that what it was like?
You definitely have another side of her figured out, if I must say, which is the ability to completely twist the actual composition of a conversation the way that she wants to spin it. I mean, Jesus, I went through that enough times too. Literally, well, what about when you said you wanted to have that llama over and have sex with him? I never said that. Yes, you did. It was like, this is unbelievable right now. That was never uttered, let alone thought about.
Next thing you know, Paul Hogan shows up. Now that's a knife.
Paul Hogan. He knocks at the door. He actually knocks at the door. And it's just like, Paul Hogan, what a surprise. How the hell are you? Come on in. So what brings you here, Paul? Well, I hear you're having some trouble with the missus, and I'd like to offer a little bit of advice to you. Oh, my God, you're here to give us marital advice. Paul Hogan, ladies and gentlemen, here he is. What's the first thing I should know? I think the first thing you should know is you've always got to be watching these women. They're up to something. They're sharp, like knives, like this one. Wow, Paul, that's great. I'll sure watch my wife better in the future. Anything else you want to say? Not really. Although I brought along a pal with me as more advice for you. His name's Robert Shaw. Oh, my God, Robert Shaw's here, too, and he's been dead for years. Robert, you look great. From the grave. What's up? Those women, they got black eyes like a doll's eyes. You got to watch them real close,
By the way, mate, here's the llama that your wife ordered.
Here's the llama that she ordered. And for anybody who wants to bash me for being snarky about someone that I used to be married to on a podcast, look, the things you go through in life, the trials and tribulations of life, if you can't arrive at a point where you can laugh at them, I don't know what you've done wrong, but you need to rethink it. I mean, what else are you supposed to do at the end of all this crazy shit that we go through? I mean, never fucking and by the way, I was found, this is a true story too. I mean, for as much as Jack bullshits, this is serious and it's true. I was found playing with my father's gun, loaded with the safety off, when I was about 6 years old, in what we called the office. Because remember, we had computers in the basement. My dad ran a company, and he had these giant computers in the basement back when they were the size of, they filled up half the room, with these two big, tub chairs that were done in leatherette and that would spin around all the way. And my dad had a bunch of stuff back there just tucked away, and I found his pistol. I remember it was big, and it was cold, and it was ominous, and I was impressed. And if Mom hadn't come in at the moment she did, I'm sure I had some angels. I had several angels that There was a kid probably choking on top ramen up the street that one of them drifted and said, oh goodness, I have to leave you. This child needs me. Good luck with that. And, so like I had some extra help that day because I've had, I would call them less than visions. I would say psychic impressions of that incident over the years of a very different outcome that one parallel universe has followed, and it includes 10%. Me not being here any longer. So anyway, wow. And I don't like to underscore that one big, but that did happen. So maybe that played into, maybe that was my introduction to, hey, this is not something that's for you, but it's never been something that's for me. So it's just like I'm saying, you're, all that, and I'm still here. I find my dad's gun and fuck around with it. And my mom, oh, thank God, she comes in. And then years later, I'm an adult man. I've been married and we're tooling down the highway. And it's, why don't we play with guns? And if you can't arrive here, at almost 52 for me on a podcast, hanging out with your best friend, your good friend, just, and not laugh at that. To me, you've done something wrong because that's what's gotten me here. So,
you just made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That is an amazing story, actually. And I was going to ask you, how was the teapot?
Short and stout.
And that, kids, is why you look both ways before crossing the street. It says kind of a after-school special tone to it, doesn't it?
I'll bet you've heard of this guy before.
What are we listening to?
But this is about the only album he sound like this on because, he's trying to capture the times. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Anka.
Oh, yes. The man who wrote My Way.
Right, but didn't sing it worth a damn because Frank took it.
Until we meet again.
All right, sounds good. Why don't we play with guns at Michael?
Only knives.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own Existence Brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.